Hello, I'm making my second video. Sorry I haven't gotten to it sooner. I have been having problems with physical health. I'm also under a lot of stress, wondering if about my medication, whether I will still have it in the future. I'd like to pick up where I left off, which was when I was around 12 years old. A few things I forgot to mention is that at 11 in 1969, I lost a brother who was 30 years old, and he was found dead after a car accident. He worked for a well-known gas station, and he was found dead in his office. The death certificate came back as undetermined, and there were some bruises that didn't consist with a car accident. And a week before that happened, he had told my mom on the phone he had got threatened by a guy with a gun, but he didn't say who the person was. This happened out of state, and he was due to come home. This happened a week. One more week. He was due to come home. I had to face, going to his funeral, which I didn't do very well. I don't do very well at funerals. They had to remove me and practically hold me up. When I went to his funeral, I nearly passed out and couldn't stand, pale as a ghost, panic attacks. I couldn't handle something like that. It was very difficult for me. Also, as a child, I avoided a lot of times going places with people. Like I missed out on going to amusement parks, going out of town to beaches, with friends and their parents because of my panic attacks. I didn't want to tell them why, but even though my parents allowed me to go if I wanted to, I would come up with a lot of excuses why I couldn't go with them and stuff. And I had troubles going to movies, even with my mom or anybody. I would get panic really bad in movie theaters. I don't know why. I was okay in a roller skating rink place and other places that I like to go, like parks and the beach that was in my city within a mile of home. But for some reason, movie theaters I just couldn't handle. I had to drop out of the Girl Scouts because I just couldn't go places with them. They took me to go bowling, and I didn't last 5 minutes at the place. They noticed I was pale, I was having panic. They drove me home, and before I even had a chance to go bowling, which I had looked forward to. I never got to go bowling in my life. And also, at 13, when they threw me out of school and stuff, I stopped seeing the doctor because my parents had to pay for it, and it wasn't getting nowhere. The meds he would give me did not work. They get me worse or sick. We couldn't see seeing a psychiatrist when, it's just not helping. At that time, they were very limited on what meds they could give a child my age. Today, they are more able to give other kinds of meds. So I continued to live, at home and stay out of school, although I worried during school time until I was 16 whether they were going to come back after me or not. I did have that fear in the back of my mind. By age 15, I suffered another setback, or another shock of something that happened. There's so much, to tell, and I just don't want to make the videos 50 videos or more or whatever of just my childhood, but there's a lot to tell. But I'm trying to go into the major details of how my panic got worse. I went to visit our sister and her family, and they were living a couple of miles away, a place I never went to. But they told me if I rode my bike up there, that no problem, they would give me a ride home. I was 15 years old at the time. So I found the way to the place, to their house, and although I didn't know that, I'd never been there before. When I arrived, my sister's husband was kind of drinking pretty badly, and he was not in a good mood. My niece and nephew, my nephew was a couple of months old, and my niece was around 2.5 years old. And my niece took a ashtray and was playing with it and knocked it off the coffee table on the floor, and that ticked my brother-in-law off pretty badly, which he took the coffee table and he struck my niece with it. My niece started to cry and was begging me to take her with me. I was a person at 15, I weighed about 80 pounds. I was under 5 feet tall, and there's no way I could defend myself or do anything against a grown-up. He was a lot bigger than I was. So I stayed in the doorway, and I was kind of shocked about it, and I felt so awful that my niece was crying, "Auntie, take me with you, and she was crying. And he turned to me and he said to me, "My niece is always crying to go with you. Your niece is always trying to go with you. I think you spoil her a little too much. She always wants to spend time with you." So he picked up the coffee table and he started at me, even though I didn't say a word. I was too scared to talk. I ran outside with him chasing me with a coffee table, but I got away, jumped on my bike, took off, was crying because of what I seen, was crying because I couldn't do anything about it. And I jumped on my bike and attempted to leave that area to head home, which it was, I'd say, about 4 miles, 3.5 to 4 miles away from where I live. And when I got to the bottom of the hill, I realized on the poles there was no street signs, and there was 3 streets, and I didn't know which one I came from. So I attempted to go back to my sister's house, attempted to try to talk to her at the door to try to get directions how to leave. At the time, I started having really bad panic attacks. I was so dizzy. I told my sister I feel like I'm gonna die, and I was crying. And her husband came out and said to me, "I couldn't care less if you die. I hope you die. I won't even call a rescue." And they had no phone, so we couldn't call anybody. I didn't know anybody in that neighborhood over there. So she came out, but she couldn't really distinguish how to get out of there. She said she would have to see the street, which street to take, because she wasn't too sure herself. And she couldn't leave. She didn't want to leave her children, her young children, with somebody that's so angered and drunk. So I took the middle street and took a shot and did find my way back home. But for days, I was so upset I kept crying and crying and crying. So after that, I tried to put it out of my mind. I said to myself, I will never go places where I don't know my way. Never again. If I don't know my way, I ain't ever going again. Well, I went to the store with my mom. I loved going out shopping, even the grocery store, any store. It was something I loved doing with my mother. And when I went to the grocery store like half a mile away. All of a sudden I started feeling like I'm gonna die, pass out, dizzy, horrible feeling, begging my mother, please, let's leave the store. I can't stay. I want to go home. I don't feel well and stuff. And next thing you know, that illness, that problem was constantly with everywhere I was going, until I couldn't even go one street away and ended up homebound.